Hello, everyone. It is 7 o'clock, so we'll get started. Some of us just flew in from a policy, well, not flew, but ran down the aisle there from a policy meeting. So welcome to the March 2025 Lake George School Board meeting. We are all here. And we would like to get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you're able, please stand and join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands liberty, justice for all.
The next item on the agenda is a special education program update with Christopher Mondella, Jana Smith, and Frank Koza. So thank you. And Kate Kelly.
Does that work, Dane? Is that where?
No, I mean, he's just gonna pass it.
So thank you for your time this evening. The title of the presentation is A Pathway to Independence. And I want to do some very quick introductions before I pass the mic over to our presenters. So we'll try to go back one slide if possible, but I want to introduce you to our school psychologist for the district, Jenna Smith. You may not have met her. If you have, you'll get to know a little more about her. For those who are just seeing her, though, for the first time tonight, I know you'll be excited about some of the things that Jenna has been involved in the creation of this program. We have Kate Kelly, our special ed extraordinaire educator for the high school. We're so pleased that Kate has volunteered to be part of the development of this program and ultimately the teaching of this program. Kate came to us years ago from the Hudson Falls School District with a lot of expertise in this topic, and that's part of why Kate jumped at the opportunity to be an instrumental part of this program. Obviously, Chris Mondell, our CSE chairperson for the past few years, and Chris has worked diligently the past few months in working with this team in developing this program. Every time we have a student need in the district, we want to take an opportunity to kind of look at what do we internally offer, what are we able to offer before we make the hard decisions about whether or not we have to look at outside placements. So in working with Jim Conway and the elementary staff the past few months, we've had a lot of discussions about the needs of the students, not only here at the middle school, 7th and 8th grade, but also what's coming up from the elementary school. And we thought, despite declining enrollment, that this might be an opportunity for us to utilize existing staff, extraordinary existing staff, to meet the needs of our students in-house. So it's a balancing act. You know, we want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our students, that we're not overstretching our staff based on the current needs, and see what opportunities that we can continue to provide to our students. So, past few months, this team has been tasked. It started with working with the elementary folks, and I'm going to turn it over to Jenna to kind of talk a little about the program and next steps. And Chris.
So thank you, Fran, and thanks, John and the board, for allowing us to present tonight about something that we are really excited about, which is the life skills program that we're putting into place for the fall. Yep. So when I first took over as CSE chair, one of the things that John asked me to do was to take a really close look at our continuum of services. So what kind of programs is the special education department offering K through 12? And in discussions with our department, and one of the things that were pointed out to me is that we have a great program, K through 6, that supports some of our neediest students in the district. That program we call the special class, and that's taught by Morgan Burns down at the elementary school. And in Morgan's classroom, you'll see students that are severely autistic, Down syndrome, or multiple handicapped. And we've realized that we don't really have a great home or a landing spot for them here at the middle school, which kind of was the reason why we looked to design a program here. So in designing that program, one of the first things that I thought we needed to figure out was who was going to teach that program. And the first person that came to my mind was Kate Kelly. So I've known Kate now for about 10 years. We taught together at Hudson Falls. And when I was there, I taught a self-contained behavioral program, and Kate was in the self-contained autistic classroom, or the BEARS program. And because our classroom models were very similar, we spent a lot of time together. And I was able to spend a lot of time in her classroom. And one of the things that I noticed was the organization of that classroom. Her TAs all had a task. They knew their responsibilities. They were working with students. They were always doing what they were supposed to be doing that Kate dictated. The design of the classroom, the environment was designed in a way that was supporting students with sensory needs. But the most important was that she was able to make connections with those students. It was obvious by just being in that classroom that they adored her, and she felt the same way about them. She's an incredible educator. I was so glad when she agreed to teach this class. She came into my office in the morning to talk about it. I said, after our discussion, take some time, go home, talk to your husband, and let me know. She texted me in about an hour and said, yes, I'm interested. I'd love to do it. So she's definitely on board, and we're really excited to have her. Fran talked a little bit about Jenna as well, our new school psychologist, another amazing addition to the team this year. She comes to us from Mechanicville. She has some great experiences there, and she really has become my sounding board. She has some experience that in a small district like Lake George, we don't see as much. So when something pops up, she's the one that I go to. We have developed a great working relationship. I really appreciate having her. And she's going to go into some more detail about the program in just a second. But one of the things I wanted to add, in an effort to make this program more sustainable, one of the things that we're looking to do is to bring students in from other districts. So we're going to be looking to tuition students from some of our neighboring districts that have students that are high need, that possibly we could support here. And I'll go into some detail about what that process looks like in just a minute. But first, we're going to hear a little bit more about what the program is and who it supports.
Awesome. So hello, everyone. Thank you, Chris. This is just a little bit about our vision for the program. So what we really want to create is that specialized and individualized program for our students who are transitioning to that 7th and 8th grade year. The transition from 6th grade can be a little bit daunting and scary, especially thinking about our students moving different buildings as well. So we really want to have that support and that program ready to go for the fall, so that we can best support those students. So our program would be tailored for 7th and 8th grade students with significant cognitive disabilities and moderate challenges in daily functioning skills, maybe self-regulation and behavioral skills, as well as their communication. And we're looking to offer that individualized, unique educational experience that really encompasses that whole child, that functional skills piece, daily living skills, positive behavior supports, and how to transfer that into the real world once they move up to 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, and what that would look like. So we really want to prepare them for that success. Looking specifically about who that program would be designed for. Like I mentioned, experiences significant cognitive disabilities. So we're looking for students who have unique learning challenges, unique learning needs. And sometimes they might be learning those skills to manage their emotions, behaviors, self-regulation. They might need that additional adult support from TAs, classroom teachers, or push and supports from related services such as your school counselors, social workers, etc. These students, again, like I said, we would have that working relationship with related services. So there would be likely students with delays in speech and language, communication, motor skills. So you would have OT and PT working well with us as well. And that social emotional development, as I mentioned. Looking at, like I mentioned, daily living skills. So students who might have difficulty getting their backpacks together in the morning, maybe difficulty with, self-care, brushing, washing, feeding themselves, some of those challenges that we would be able to support in school and how to carry those daily living skills over into the home setting as well. These students would benefit from a highly structured classroom with those positive behavior supports worked in. And it's that small supportive learning community. So really what we're looking at is a class of no more than 8 students. It would be considered what we call an 8-1-2. So that would be 8 students maximum, one special ed teacher, and then 2 aides in the classroom. So it would be a high level of support and being able to have that highly structured setting as Kate's experience had in Hudson Falls as well. Ideally, we would be looking at how to, as I mentioned, broaden those skills past 7th and 8th grade. So looking at potentially a local diploma or a CDOS credential, and really looking at that opportunity post high school as well. Is it something that students could work for going into the work environment, or something where you could start, really getting into the community as well? And I'll turn it over to Kate, and she'll talk a little bit about what that program will look like.
Hi, I am so excited to get to work with this population of students again. I really enjoy it. Every day is unique and different, even though the day is really, really structured, very similar and the same. So the classroom, like Jenna said, will be an 8-1-2, 8 students maximum, 1 teacher, and 2 support staff to make sure every student gets exactly what they need. Most of the day and the work that they do is tailored specifically to that student. Sometimes they will be working in groups, but based on what that student needs, depending on in the moment or what they need throughout the day, they might do a lot of independent work as well. So it's important to have all those adults in there to really support the student with whatever goal that they're working on. So in the classroom, they'll be working on all core subjects, English, social studies, math, and science, but it will look very different. A lot of the learning will go hand in hand with learning daily living skills, like learning how to read signs if they are going to go for a walk, and how to cross the street or a stop sign, or just if they're going to a store, how to read those kinds of signs. Also working on things like time and money management, the kind of math that they'll really use in the real world. So in my past experience, we've done a lot of activities where students are practicing buttoning up a shirt or zipping, helping them open a container. So when they go to the lunch room, they're able to do that independently. So we want to really build on all those skills. And we'll also be working on a lot of social skills, oftentimes learning how to play games, how to win, how to lose, how to take turns. All of those things we'll be working on throughout the day, and I'm really excited to do it. So each student will be working towards something that will motivate them. So oftentimes grades isn't a motivator for these students. So sometimes they might work for going for a walk, listening to music, having iPad time, computer time, playing a game. Sometimes that looks like having a behavior chart or earning certain things as they do a task. Some students are able to do multiple tasks and then earn a certain item. And sometimes they're just able to do one task and they get a break. It really will depend on how that student is and how they are throughout the day. And they will also have related services like speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy, counseling, or assistive technology if they need that. And those therapies could happen in the classroom, or they could happen when they're at gym, when they're at art, in the lunchroom. Whatever the student needs is when we will make sure that they get those services. And I've also reached out to quite a few teachers at the high school, and we want to make sure that these students really do feel like they're part of the school community. So when they're able to push in, when they're able to do activities, whether joining a science project or any other thing that's going on in the classroom, all the teachers have been really supportive in saying that we can join them, so those students can really feel like they're part of the school community.
So back to the tuition portion, again, one of the things that we were really clear about when designing this was we wanted to make sure that the tuitioning was not to create funds for the district. The purpose of tuitioning students in is to sustain the program. While we have a steady stream of students that are coming from Morgan's classroom, it'll never be enough to fill an 812. So bringing those students in from other districts will help to maintain this program and give it some longevity and sustainability. So when we are looking for students from outside the district, the things that we're going to be looking and requiring are obviously to see their current IEP. We want to make sure that what we're doing is going to be able to support them. We want to see their attendance history, their behavioral history, if there's a BIP in place, a behavioral intervention plan or a support plan. Jen is going to take a look at their psychoed evals, observation at a current placement by the Lake George team. So we've already had the opportunity to go to one school. So this would be the team where we'd go see that student in their home setting to make a decision if that student's appropriate for our program. If that goes well, we would move to the intake interview where we'd ask the student and the parent and the CSE chair from that district to join us here to make a final decision on whether it's a good fit. And then we'd move forward. Again, the other criteria is just that they're in 7th and 8th grade. We are really excited about this program. I think it's going to be a great success. It's a support that we haven't had in place for some time. And I think at this time it is a need. So again, we're really excited. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity to share it with you as well.
So to one piece about the tuition that Chris touched on, as Rosemary can probably attest to, this isn't the first time that Lake George High School's embarked on a program of this nature. The difference being is the tuitioning in. And we wanted to ensure that this program can sustain because we know what will be coming from the elementary school. So we wanted to ensure that if we're putting all of this time and effort to develop the program, that we can sustain it for the long haul. We're talking about placements that are in excess of 6 figures for individual students per year. So the cost savings, yes, is a factor. However, by tuitioning students in and working with the business departments of those neighboring districts to ensure that our costs are covered by that incoming student, we're also ensuring the sustainability of this program. So there could potentially be a year or two where there's more tuition kids in the program than Lake George kids. But looking in the long view, knowing what's coming up from the elementary school, that will continue to meet the needs of our students in-house. Then when they age out of this program in 9th grade or thereabouts, depending on their levels, determining what's the next best step for them. We are having initial discussions about seeing how this goes, what we can do at the high school level to start to potentially in-house program for students, or if their needs change, what placements outside of these walls would best suit their needs. So we really spent a lot of time on this aspect of it with John Luthringer and Bonnie Hart, and really being thoughtful about, we want to sustain this program. We don't want to do all this work and then the kids who are at the elementary school age out and then the program fades away. We've been there, we've done that. So we want to make sure that we're doing it thoughtfully for the future. So I think the next slide is just questions that the board might have for our team.
Thank you, Chris and Jenna, Kate and Fran. Does anybody have questions they want?
Yeah, I'm-
Yeah.
I'm curious. Thank you. I think that's a wonderful service to be able to offer our student population that needs that. I'm curious with the students coming in, how does it work with transportation for the students that are tuitioning from out of the district?
Yep, so we have a framework in place already for CTE programming and BOCES programming, that we do share transportation on occasion with neighboring districts. But for the most part, for these students, the home district would be responsible for transporting them here for our bell schedule and picking them up at the end of the day. Much like if I were to choose a local example, the Prospect School. So if you ever drive by Aviation Road at dismissal time, you'll see school buses from all over the region going to Prospect School. No different than our CTE kids. We transport down to that facility and back. And then our out-of-district placement students, we are responsible for daily transport. So it would be their home district.
How many students right now do you have coming up from sixth grade to seventh.
So sixth grade,
Who
we have
qualify?
one coming up to the seventh grade, and we have one seventh grader going up to eighth grade. So far, 2 Lake George students, and we're interviewing other students from other districts.
So I just wanted to make a comment. Thank you for putting this program together. And it's really reassuring to listen to the mutual admiration and respect you have for each other. It just feels like such a nice team and such thoughtful work. So thank you. And I'm just curious, so if a student from another school district ends up coming to this program, that would be like a placement by the other school, and so that school is paying the tuition. Is that how that works? Okay.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So Marianne, to that point, Chris and I have had extensive conversations with Bonnie about what that cost would be. What is the technical term?
It's not a clear-cut, easy answer. As a district, we have two choices. The district or the state sets a tuition rate for a regular education student, and then it's 3 times that for a special education student. We as a district could choose to use what our special ed rate is, or we could bill the home district the true cost. What you can't do is say, for this student, I'm going to choose this method, and for this student, I'm going to choose this method. We were advised, if I go back, it was quite an interesting exercise to sit down and really break down what's the true cost for each of these kids that are in Morgan's program versus a kid that may push into a regular, like a CT class. And it was really, I think, eye-opening for us as an administrative team and Chris when we sat down and looked at that. So then we worked with, it's called the STACK system. And it's interesting, and we worked with the expertise from Quest Arboces on that. And they advised us to do the true cost. Because it may be advantageous one year to use your special ed tuition rate, which is about $85,000. And the true cost for that kid may be less than that. But then the next kid may have a physical disability and need more services or need more equipment or a one-on-one, not necessarily for behavioral issues, but for physical issues. And then that cost could be 6 figures. So they advise go with the true cost. You break down, is quite a daunting process, but it's a really good learning exercise for us to really see what that true cost is. So I hope I answered the question.
That's why I look to you.
I have one.
Okay.
How many students do you need to fulfill that, the resources we currently have coming from outside?
Mario, we don't have a minimum at this point. We're
Okay.
thinking of a possible maximum of 5, but that's not written in stone either. We're thinking 5 with the 2 aides in the classroom would be reasonable. We'd be able to support those students. We'll see if there's students that we think are a good fit above that, then maybe we would consider raising that number. But there really is no minimum. Either way, if we don't get any students from outside the district, we have 2 students that are our own that we're committed to supporting this year and then trying to build the program as we can. As we move
Is
on.
there interest from other schools, or have you
There
heard
is,
that?
yeah. So
Okay.
I've sent out emails to Luzerne, Warrensburg, Bolton, North Warren, Corinth, Fort Ann. So yeah, I'm really trying to concentrate on the ones that geographically make the most sense first, and then we'll expand. But yes, there are students from other districts that we will have the opportunity to see.
Thank you.
Well, y'all either answered my questions as you were talking about and you answered it or they've been asked. I really appreciate the focus on the skills that transfer to the real world. I mean, that's what we want really for all of our students, right? Is to be able to go out into the world and transfer what they learn here and have the world work for them and them work for the for the world to be a good match. So I appreciate that focus. It's exciting. So thank you.
Can I ask one question?
Oh, yes.
I know the building is old and there's plenty of room, but is there actual suitable space that'll work well with the kids based on disabilities and activities and needs?
That's an excellent question. So with declining enrollment and attrition, with many retirements that the board is voting on this evening, we have more instructional spaces coming offline. So Kate had her choice of numerous classrooms that I haven't really determined yet their future. So you're pleased, I'm putting you right on the spot right now, but she chose, I think, the best room for the environment that she's trying to create. You want to talk about that a little?
A room that I think is good. It's Tammy Darby's room right now. It's in the basement. It's right by the elevator if there's a student who has disabilities. It also gives those students privacy. For when students struggle or have a hard time, oftentimes people with autism, they might scream or yell. And people are tempted to look in the window and see what's going on. But really, if they're having a hard time, that's not something for people to come and gawk at and stare at. So it gives them a space where they can be private and go through whatever emotion they need to if they're having a hard time, but also they are still in the building. They're still in a hallway where kids are walking in and out. They'll still get to see all the other students, but it's a big space and it has a sink, which I think is really great, teaching the kids how to wash their hands. Even if you're teaching them how to wash dishes or do those kinds of chores, how to wipe down a table, it has that water that's right there. We don't have to go out. So I like that it gives them privacy, but they're also really right there connected to the rest of the school. And near a bathroom, yes.
So I just have another quick question. So are these children staying, they're not changing classes then, right? During the day, they're staying in the room, but they're going out for specials and lunch? Related service and other services. So does the change of class bell have to go on in that classroom? Is that disruptive or interruptive first?
No, so the bell, depending on what Kate requires, the bell can be silenced within that room. So that if they're not leaving the room during the bell change, they're not prompted by that annoying ringing.
Yeah, no, I was just curious. It just makes me think of like some of the sensory issues
Yep.
and how and if people have seizures.
And the second thing we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about, we've allocated curriculum hours this summer for Kate to not only develop appropriate activities and learning curriculum for these students, but also with her colleagues to pull in some folks over the summer to work with them about those opportunities to get outside of the classroom. So that curriculum work this summer is going to be vital and important as well.
Anybody else? Thank you again very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is the instructional budget presentation with our business official, Bonnie Hart.
Thank you. Who has the clicker? Chris, do you have the clicker? Oh, really? So if it doesn't, oh, you think so? Okay. Thank you. Welcome. It's working? My mic? Yeah, okay. So tonight I'm going to present on the instructional budget presentation. Last month, we talked about the non-instructional budget, which was your buildings and grounds, your facilities, and general support area. My disclaimer last month will be the same this month. Not all costs are finalized at the moment. So the figures I give in the presentation, they very well may change. I don't think they'll change drastically, but will be, some may increase and some may decrease as more and more costs are finalized. So here on our calendar, our budget calendar, tonight is the instructional budget, which is our biggest portion of the overall budget. It's just about half of the overall budget, or pretty close to. And this part of the budget is 100% student driven. Everything that falls in these categories are all about our students here. So last month I used the analogy of building a budget is like building a house, and we have our foundation, and then we have the framing, the essential supports, and then the enhancements. So last month, our non-instructional budget here in the red really is our foundation, building that house, but it's also maintaining it throughout. Then we move into the instructional budget. And as I said, it's the largest part of the budget, so it's the largest part of our house. So we have our core expenses, similar to a foundation, our instructional salaries, our students with disabilities, which we just heard a lot about, our instructional programs. They're our core expenses. Then we move into our essential services, our pupil services. Not all of these are necessarily mandates, but they're essential for operations. So pupil services, technology, instructional media, supplies, professional development. And then ultimately we get to our non-essential, nothing, not mandatory, but certainly enhancing and enriching and making the big package complete, which is our athletics, extracurriculars, and field trips. So again, instructional budget's the biggest part of the house, biggest part of the budget. Last month, I also talked about the portrait of a graduate, and where New York State is proposing the Blue Ribbon Commission with the skills that we want to see in our graduate. Well, along with that, our state is looking at different ways our students can demonstrate their learning. And this is the proposed learning outcomes. And when you look at this is from the state, the options, all of these fall in the instructional budget. Whether it's our CTE programs, our coursework, our advanced coursework, our PTech programs, our early college, high school, internships, all of that again falls within this part of the budget. So when we just look at our numbers, administration, BOCES and services is professional development, contractual services, a smaller part of the instructional budget, looking at an increase of 5% there. Although if you look at the dollar change, it's not as big as some of the others. Teaching is our biggest part, typically, of the instructional budget, but you will hear and act on many retirements. Our retirements that our teachers that are retiring are in the teaching category, which is our K through 12 instructional salaries, or not necessarily our pupil services, which has quite a few salaries in it as well. So there, despite raises, there is, not as big of increase due to retirements and attrition there. Instructional media is technology. A big part of our budget here is our technology, our devices, our software, our hardware, as well as our library services. And then our pupil services is our biggest increase in this part of the budget, which is your guidance, your support staff, health services. Health services include students that not just our nurse, if you think of that, but our doctor that provides services that we're supposed to have, or students that may be going to a private school, parent place private school. We have to pay those home districts for the health services that they receive at that private school. And if they're special ed, we have to pay that home district for all of the related services that they receive at that private placement, based on the parent's choice. And then our co-curricular interscholastic athletics is our biggest increase there. And a lot of that is just basic salaries or contractual obligations. So we're looking at about a $200,000 increase. a 1.6% increase. Something also to understand when you're budgeting, you got to look at all of the parts at once, even though we do one every single month. I have to look at revenue about the money that's coming in. So this year, which was nice, is with the governor's proposal, without the foundation aid big hit, I could plan on that as well as a tax levy, tax cap, and looking at what changes do I anticipate. Uh-oh. Okay. So this slide is the pie chart for our visual learners. And again, you could see the teaching is traditionally it's between 69 and 70%. So we're staying pretty consistent. These percents, if they changed from last year, it was maybe 0.5%. So we'd like that in the budgeting world to stay pretty consistent there. So some of the highlights in the instructional budget. We are looking at an increased participation in our CTE numbers. Students that have shown interest, CTE, we have to commit to early on, very early on in the budget cycle. We also have some early college, high school, and New Visions and International Baccalaureate program interest. So we're looking at definitely an increase there. Looking at a new technology server upgrade. So everything works on servers. So we have to make sure they are maintained and upgraded and migrating to the cloud for some of our programs. Our student instructional devices, we have had this for years. It's a replacement cycle. Some years it's higher than other years. This particular replacement cycle is a little bit more than say last year because we also have staff included in that. The biggest area of increase was our anticipated costs with students with disabilities. You just heard about the in-district program we're looking at, but it's the outside placements that have increased. They were not anticipated last year. It occurred, late in the summer. So this year we're predicting that to continue. So we have about double the amount of outside placements than we anticipated 1 year ago. Still single digits though. We're supplementing our UPK program, which was new this year. We do get some grant money for that. It covers maybe 40 to 50% of the overall cost. However, we do have some savings, obviously, as I said, from attrition. And when we do our budget hearing in May, we'll have more exact numbers as to what we are looking at for this year, as well as the history. So we have savings there. We definitely helps with the increasing cost, especially with our outside placements. And we are utilizing in-staff personnel for English language learner services. That will be a savings. And also allows the district with a lot more flexibility with that staff member. And looking at our future budget meetings, next month we will have the undistributed budget and anticipated revenues. And then in May, we will have the final budget hearing with Meet the Candidates nights leading up to the annual budget vote. Are there any questions for me?
I guess, Bonnie, one quick question. The ratio for the new in-district program?
Yes.
Is it 812 or?
Well, I think it depends ultimately on our students' needs. So if we have kids that have one-on-ones on top of the 811, then it would become an 812. I think they were looking at, Fran, correct me if I'm wrong, anticipating maybe an 812 based on their visits as well as our current student needs, but it may be an 811 if it's not as severe of needs. But we're hoping to get about 5, as they said.
Right. I guess just from a budgeting standpoint, are you preparing for the 812 or the 811?
So if it's an 812, that 2 is 95% going to be an outside district placement. just with some conversations we've been having. Am I correct with that? There may be an additional teaching assistant that could help out because they would have room in their day. It wouldn't be an additional hire. We're utilizing all our staff there. Any other questions?
Thank you, Bonnie. The next item on the agenda is the elementary update with our elementary principal, Mr. Jim Conway.
So I wish that team was still here because I do want to commend them on that work and thank you, Fran. You know, as Chris said, he's working hard on that continuum of service. So, you know, that's wonderful. It really is. I'm excited for our students that are making their way to the junior, senior high, that they've made a program to meet their needs. And it's not easy to do, but great work, Francis. Couple of events that happened recently. I just want to recap. Our math night, February 27th, the cafeteria was absolutely packed. Wonderful event, and I give a lot of credit to members of our cabinet and the action team of teachers that put on that family event. We had our career night Thursday, March 6th. We had about 20 presenters in the gym, several hundred people again packed the gym, and over 120 students attended, which is amazing for any event that a school hosts. So Zoe Chodak did a great job, and all those that helped support her at that event. HARP, which we now call Pick a Reading Partner, for this month of March is underway, and our reading teachers have organized some fun activities, from Stop, Drop, and Read to Wear It Wednesdays, are kind of like spirit days. Fridays, kids are bringing in blankets and they're doing like reading at a campsite, that type of a setup, but it's the Reader Rondax theme, and it's going really well. I know that Amy's out in the audience, and I'm going to give a little shout out to the music department, to Tommy Sokoloff. Tommy did a wonderful job, and Amy and the music department is tremendous under your guidance. But it's just so important for our students that you as a Board of Education support the arts. And I know that it's just so very important to Fran and I and our team. We get to work with some amazing people, and Tommy S. hit a home run with a great show. And I know they saw many of you there, so you know what I'm talking about. Heroic action from our staff. So I've got 35 years in education, 25 or so as an administrator, and I've had a handful of incidents where somebody was choking. In the past week and a half, we had 2 incidents. And I really believe that in these situations, the lives were saved. Pretty amazing, between Jeff Crotty and Shannon Doshel. And we really thank them for that. Yeah, it was. And I will relay your applause to both of them. But truly amazing, and we're just very fortunate that they were able to take action. People don't always step forward and take action. They were quick thinking, and they were amazing. Battle of the Books today at SUNY Adirondack, and we had almost 40 students with our coaches, our staff members that have worked really hard with these kids for months, and every team made it into the semifinals. Nobody advanced to the finals this year. So our kids all experienced that thrill of victory and the challenges of when you lose and you don't quite get there, which there's a lot of lessons that are learned there. But really excited that we have our teams, and I've said this before, oftentimes teams will have 5, 6, 7 students. We try to get 10 kids on every team. It's just been our philosophy, and all of those kids compete equally. So great event. Tomorrow, keeping with that, highlighting the arts, Saratoga Opera visiting us on Thursday for a performance for K through 2 students. And the Saratoga Opera does a wonderful job, and it's really pretty cool because our kids love the opera. Like, right? You think, are they going to really enjoy this? And they really do. And they're prepared well in their music class with information that leads up to this for them. Just a few more things. We continue to have a good relationship with Franklin Covey through our Leader in Me approach with things. It's important to have a consultant that continues to work with you. Just like we do in math, we continue to work with our consultant and get good feedback and information and get different perspectives on how we approach things. We will be having a day March 20th where our coach Sharon Chapman comes up from Queens, and she cracks us up, but she offers some really good insight onto the work that we're doing and supporting us in teaching kids leadership principles. Pre-K Parent Information Night, March 24th, and direct at 5:30, and right after that, our Kindergarten Parent Information Night. We hit both of those, Susan, on the same night, and Elena. Those two will be there. It's a great opportunity for us to share information about the program, and the teachers do a great job sharing that for our parents. Social Studies Fair, another one of those family events. It's coming up on March 27th. And just a heads up that in April, we get rolling with New York State tests. Our kids are very well prepared for those, but they do come up April with ELA and 3 through 8 actually, and then our science tests at 5 and 8 on April 24th after vacation. That's all I've got.
Thank you.
All
That's a
right.
lot. Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jim. Next up, we have the secondary update with Mr. Fran Kikoza, our secondary principal.
Hi, good evening. I'll be brief. 2 Fridays ago, Drumline, under the direction of Amy Baker, opened up the South High Marathon Dance. We're so pleased for the 11th year in a row to be invited to open up their dance. I believe they raised over $700,000 for their community. And it's just neat to see our Lake George Lakers on their billboard. As you well know, our VEX teams competed at the state championships 2 weeks ago, last week actually, in Syracuse. We sent 7 high school students and 12 middle school students to compete at the state level. One of our bots qualified at the high school level for World Championship in Dallas, Texas, and I believe that's an agenda item that you'll be voting on this evening. The costume for we had planned on debuting it tonight.
Who's gonna wear it, Mr. Kikoza?
Remember, you have to be under 6 foot. I don't know if you're going to fit in it or you'll stretch it and rip it. So maybe next month we'll debut it, but it's coming. I get daily updates on the shipping. Something like that. It better show up or I'm going to Bulgaria, or where is it? Where is it? Hungary. Would you pay for my airline trip to there? Again, I'll echo what I know. Jim has already stated the musical School of Rock was fantastic. For the first time in my 18 years here, we sold out the auditorium. We've come close, but we have never sold out. We even had to remove the sight lines, so it was a true sellout crowd for Friday evening. And Saturday's crowd was just as full. Amy Baker, of course, Nikki McGrath, John Alecci, and Tommy Sokoloff for his debut as a director in Lake George Schools just hit a grand slam. The season for the winter athletic teams just wrapped up. As I'm sure John will share with you if he hasn't already, we have multiple scholar athletes team who have achieved that GPA status to get that designation. So they're excellent athletics on the court, but also within the classroom. April 10th, we are sending 14 students to Costa Rica under the direction and supervision of Mrs. Cooper and Mrs. Cornell. So we have a parent night coming up next week to kind of outline expectations for the travel to Costa Rica, April 10th through the 18th. Our career fair, we changed it up a little bit this year. We're not doing a job fair. We're going to focus on careers, and it's Tuesday, April 8th. I again invite you all, if you're available that morning, to stop by the high school. We have multiple alumni coming back to speak to our students about their career journey and their career path. And then the students by choice will be broken up into different workshops on different career pathways. So that's April 8th, which is a Tuesday. And then finally, April 26th is the junior class prom for the class of 2026. They will begin at Shepherd Park. It's a clean slate. If it's raining, we'll have some tents there. And it will not rain that day. Blue Water Manor is where the prom will be, and then Lanes and Games is where the post-prom will be. Our hope is that the amphitheater will be reconstructed this summer and in place for next year's prom, but we're still going to use Shepherd Park for coronation this year. And that's my update.
That's one of those benefits of when you try to find the silver lining of COVID, you know, having them move it to there because we needed to be outside and it's stuck.
It's stuck.
It's
Yep.
a really
Even
beautiful
without an
spot.
amphitheater, it's
Right,
stuck.
right. And I did have the pleasure to go to the high school musical, and my husband and I enjoyed it immensely. And we're singing the catchy tune "Stick It to the Man" on the way home. So, so it was great.
I especially like that one.
Yes, yeah. So thank you for anybody have anything. Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report with Mr. John Luthringer, our superintendent.
Yeah, thank you, Katie. Just a few items here. I do want to also just echo the musical. I'll just tell a little story. Jace, my youngest son, and I have attended the 3 musicals since I've been here, and they just continue to be so tremendous and unique in their own right. But they're all amazing. So I did turn to him one night, at one point Friday night, and I said, if Mr. Kokoza can't, if we need seats, you and I are standing up immediately. So fortunately, we didn't have to, but we were prepared because we certainly was so impressed with the crowd and the performance, and kudos to everybody involved. It was just tremendous. We had a great staff conference day yesterday. So we had our last superintendent's day of the year. So much productive work occurs thanks to our teachers and our teaching assistants and all of our instructional staff and their commitment to continuing to improve. And we had a lot of great sessions that were also run by our teachers who are becoming really leading experts in areas. We had areas focused on generative AI. So we took time to dive into the policy that the Board of Education has developed, in addition to kind of looking at different platforms and talking about the practical uses of it in the classroom. So we had a great session led by Kaylee Seymour for that. We had a great session on media literacy, continued discussion on the constructivist media decoding strategy that we have a lot of book studies going on over the last couple of years. That was led by Bridget, and it was just a really great opportunity again to start thinking about all the media that we're consuming and how we interpret it and the ways that we can continue to educate our students and vetting those things that come through all the different platforms that they're exposed to. We also had a third session on data privacy, cybersecurity, training. Something came across my desk that 81% of schools across the United States have been hit with a cybersecurity attack. So it's constantly relevant for us. It's required training by New York State. Megan led that. It was also intertwined with some computer science and digital fluency standards. So really some great work around instructional technology really across the morning. And then the building levels had some really great sessions in the afternoon focused on continued work on the future, portrait of a graduate, science curriculum, and co-teaching strategies for special education classrooms. So a lot of great work. So thank you to all that were involved in planning those days. We had last week as well, we had lobby days I mentioned, and I go down to Albany and spend a day meeting with legislators and senators. And it's like, it's kind of like speed dating. You're going into these offices with a group of us that you have 30 minutes and it's like you're pitching, the things that are important to schools. And we work really hard on our advocacy priorities. It's a great committee. Not only do we think about our school, but we think about all public schools when we go down and speak to senators and our assembly members. And it went very well, as it usually does. We focused on really the big four this year, which is foundation aid, CTE reimbursement rates, which haven't been adjusted since 1992. It really prevents school districts from sending students to these programs. Lots of school districts cap their students. We don't do that here in Lake George, which you can see in our instructional budget. We want to provide those opportunities for students, but it's really a burden, and it hasn't been adjusted. It's set at the $30,000, which was in 1992. So we're looking and asking for it to be, the reimbursement be raised to $60,000, which will certainly help reinvest in us abilities for us to send students to these programs. So that was a really big topic, workforce development, and we had some time talking about zero emission buses and the work that needs to continue to happen for us to adhere to that mandate in 2027. So another topic that came up, there was a couple of them. One was universal breakfast and universal lunches. We're still working towards that. That seems to be getting some traction as well, but we'll see where that goes. And then the other topic that we spent quite a bit of time talking about was the governor's proposal for a distracted-free learning environment, which really is about cell phones, smartwatches, AirPods, all sorts of different personal communication devices. This is not new to us. We've been talking about this. We have existing practices in place, and I know our principals have done a great job addressing those things this year. We've really committed to our practices to have cell phones away during instructional time. And I know Mr. Koza has definitely done surveys of our staff and our students this year as well, as we prepare for what's likely to come. The governor has put out her desire, and I think what we heard from the legislators is their desire as well, to see some sort of law passed. I think that's the key point, is that it's just, at this point, it's a proposal. So we're waiting for that legislation to happen. So we have the fine specifics of the obligations for our school district. That's not new for us. Typically, when we know there's pending legislation, we do kind of wait and learn, and then adjust, adapt, and adopt. We anticipate that legislation will include some aspect of a policy development, along with those specific obligations that we just don't know about. It's got to go through the legislative process. What we did hear is that the expectation will be that it's implemented by September 1st. So we're doing some great work, gathering some feedback. So once we know those specific obligations, we'll be able to address it in a collaborative shared decision-making format, and then communicate our obligations to our parents and families, and certainly our teachers as well. Just a couple last things here. Capital project update. We have started groundbreaking already has occurred. We've had some tree work and removal of trees that started on Monday. You may have seen some activity at our site. We will also have a brief groundbreaking ceremony on April 7th at 1 p.m. I did share that out. We shared that broadly, so we invited lots of dignitaries and community members to participate in that with us. It will occur, like I said, 1 p.m. It'll be brief, but we're going to spend some time just kind of recognizing the moment for our community. The project is set to be completed in July 2026, so there'll be time to transition, and we'll be hitting the ground running September 1st. So it'll be here before we know it. The one thing I just want to reiterate here is that as part of the project, we will be making enhancements to that gravel pit parking lot, I call it, right by the bike path. It will be enhanced, and it will be much safer, and it will be more productive for community members that park there, and certainly those for athletic events as well. But for the duration of the project, that will be closed. So we did communicate that. We will continue to re-communicate that out as we sort of get into spring season, which is coming up here. And all parking will occur on Sun Valley Drive in the parking lots of the elementary school. So it will be closed temporarily for a lengthy period of time, but once it's reopened, it will be vastly improved. And finally, I just want to mention, we do have quite a bit of retirees that will be on our agenda tonight, and we anticipate some more as well. And certainly we're excited and thrilled for them, and it's quite the accomplishment and the big congratulatory for all of those members retiring. And we are definitely absorbing some through attrition, but we're also going to be doing some hiring. We know we need positions. Some of the positions definitely need to be, we need to hire for. So one of the things we're doing is we're really casting we want to cast a wide net. We want to make sure we get as much interest as possible. So one of the things that Mishka Koza and I are going down to is at Sienna, the education job fair is occurring. They absorbed, it used to happen at St. Rose, and they've absorbed it. It's a large event. It really brings in a lot of schools, a lot of students who are coming out with education degrees. So we will be down there on March 27th at night. We'll be hosting a table. It'll be an opportunity for us to engage with prospective candidates, share the information, talk about hiring timelines, really just kind of get to know someone quickly, and then certainly come back and see if we can get some candidates who would be interested in Lake George. So we're excited about that opportunity. We are excited about forging ahead this spring and getting those postings out quickly so we can, you know, be early into that. As we know, later into the year, it's more challenging to get quality candidates. So that's what we have. We're excited, looking forward to the rest of the spring. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you so much, John. The next section is our, we have a handful of committee reports, and we as a board use the committee structure to get a lot of work done. And all of our committee meetings, like tonight's meeting, is open to the public. So the first of those committee reports is Audit and Finance Committee, and Mario Fasulo's the chair, and we'll give that report.
Thanks, Katie. There are 5 items tonight that I'm going to review that are on the consent agenda. The treasurer's report for January 2025 was reviewed. State aid receipts for New York State School Tax Relief Program reimbursement, excess cost aid, and lottery aid totaled $286,000, and interest for the month was just over $60,000. The district also received almost $117,000 from BOCES for their prior year excess funds, as BOCES is not allowed to have a fund balance. So any excess money is refunded back to the districts. And right now we're expensed at about 90% of our original budget, which is the same as where we were last year. That's item C on the consent agenda. The claim audit report for January 25 was reviewed. There was nothing noteworthy on there to report. That is item D. The committee also reviewed the 25-26 tax cap calculation. The property tax cap law establishes a tax levy limit for each school district. The limit allows school districts to increase the property tax levy from one year to the next by 2% or the rate of inflation, really whichever one is less. And that's based on a multi-step formula. School districts are then allowed to take certain exemptions, such as excess pension exclusions, capital expenditures that are allowed to boost the tax levy to more than 2%. But the maximum allowable tax limit is $22,508,734, which is an increase of 2.17%. That's over the 24-25 tax levy. We recommend that the committee and the Board of Ed adopt a tax levy increase slightly below the tax cap, setting it at 2.156%. This ensures compliance with fiscal guidelines and also provides the funding that the district needs to operate. And the proposed increase would generate about $475,000 in additional revenue. We also revisited a discussion we had about our insurance policies. We were going to put out an RFP, which is a request for a proposal to find possibly a new insurance company to take care of us. After further research, we determined that there's only 2 insurance companies that currently offer contracts for public schools, and there are some concerns regarding one of the providers. Also, our current insurance company holds the builder's risk insurance policy for the new transportation facility, which, you know, it's not something we really wanted to change mid-project. So given the circumstances, we decided to remain with our current insurance provider for the immediate future. Then the committee discussed the need to utilize the repair reserve for 2 unexpected emergency repairs. These 2 items are on the consent agenda. The first was to replace the existing boiler at the bus garage. It's over 35 years old. It's been leaking and inconsistently running since November. Multiple service calls, other investigation revealed that there's no guarantees that even that the existing boiler could be fully functional and reliable. So given the lead time for parts, the time of year it was, and not knowing if the repair would be successful, we proposed that we replace the unit with a new boiler rather than attempt further fixes. The cost of the new boiler, including equipment installation, is just over $27,000. The other request is for the replacement of the fire alarm panel at the high school, which most likely was damaged during a power surge. The repair requires a new panel along with wiring and sensors to bring it back to full functionality and ensure that we're compliant safety-wise. The cost for parts installation for the fire alarm panel is $28,500. So we recommend that we use a repair reserve for these emergency repairs, which the repair reserve is there for unexpected emergencies such as this. Once the Board of Ed approves, we'll replenish all the funds at the fiscal end of the year if there's surplus money to support future emergency repair needs. So If all the funds are not replenished at the end of this fiscal year, then they'll be fully replenished at the end of June 26 fiscal year. Those two items are both I and J on the consent agenda. And then the last item was reviewing the proposal and options from Tetra Tech to conduct the required New York State 5-year building condition survey. Tetra Tech has completed the district's previous surveys, which serve as a critical tool in guiding the future building needs and projects. So the district has the option to choose between a basic service, which fulfills the standard requirements, or an enhanced service, which includes a more depth inspection. What the district has done traditionally is because it's a 5-year cycle, is we've alternated between the two services, between the basic and the enhanced service. So that ensures a more comprehensive evaluation every 10 years. So the last enhanced survey was in 2015. We recommend that we go with the enhanced service for the 25 building condition survey. So the cost for that is $28,800. That is item N on the consent agenda. And the last thing we reviewed was the instructional budget, which Bonnie already covered.
Mario, I have a quick question, but first I just want to say thank you for making such good explanations and of this material and making it understandable and explaining the process between the for the standard versus enhanced survey, building survey tools. That's good information. I just have a question about the boiler replacement in the bus garage. Is it thought that boiler will remain in that building for we don't know what that building is going to be used for in the future? Is it probably staying there?
The building from our last building and ground committee meeting we had, the building will be used in some form, possibly to repair small engine repair, the tractors, things like that. So it will be used. So it is an investment that will continue in the lifetime of the boiler.
Thank you.
Correct?
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
And thank you, Mario, for connecting the minutes to the recommendations that we're going to be voting on. That's kind of to the point of all the work that happens in committee. So thank you for making those connections. The next committee report is Board Development Committee report, and I'm the chair of that committee, so I will give that report. We met last week, and our work at that committee meeting was focused on next steps for the ex officio student board member process. Thank you to John and Fran who developed the framework of the presentation that was shared. So the meeting was 2 weeks ago, I think. Pardon? Well, the presentation was last week. Our meeting, our committee meeting was 2 weeks ago, but at the March 5th student council meeting, we were preparing the presentation to do the presentation for that. So we were able to use that really solid proposed presentation from John and Fran, and we made adjustments to that. And so the presentation happened and it went really well. The students were so engaged and really attentive, and it went well. And thank you to the other board members who were able to attend that. Mario, Jeff, and Rosemarie, thank you. Because the next part of the minutes is that board members were invited for the question and answer session. So thank you for coming. That slide presentation that was used is now on the website, so that while that presentation that we did was for student council members, any student is eligible to run for office of the student ex officio board member. And I guess that's not office, but to run for that position. So any student or their parents or community members can access the presentation on the website. Also at this meeting, we reviewed and made adjustments. Thanks again to John and Fran for creating the framework of that application, which we made adjustments to, and that will be for a student to express their interest in becoming a student board member, and it will be part of the steps that a student has to complete to get on the voting ballot. And the final items that we worked on were drafting the student board member reference guide, and the board development committee is going to continue to work on the student board member handbook, the onboarding guide, and the board member mentor checklist. That's one of the things that was included in the presentation. The students will have mentorship. They'll have a board member mentor. They'll have administrative mentorship and guidance and education on becoming a board member. So our next meeting, we're going to have another meeting in April to follow up on those last items I talked about. Any questions about that? Okay. The next committee report is the curriculum committee report with Rosemarie Earl.
Okay, the curriculum committee met on February 11th. We've attached a presentation. This presentation is related to local, state, national research initiatives and standards that currently impact curriculum and instruction. So it's broken up into 4 sections: the New York State Literacy Initiative, the junior, senior high school programming discussion. Wait, I've lost my curriculum renewal cycle, and the standards-based educator and evaluation and professional support systems, the STEPS program, which is replacing APPR. So if you look at the presentation, you can see a much more detailed information than I've included on the minutes here. But pretty much the literacy initiative is looking at, well, I'll just read it briefly. The science of reading is an interdisciplinary body of research that guides literacy instruction. It emphasizes structured literacy, which involves explicit and systematic teaching of the big 6 skills, which are oral language, help me with that word, phonological awareness, thank you, phonetics, vocabulary fluency, and comprehension. So, and then there's a guide that was released in January of this year for literacy instruction for pre-K to 3rd grade. And we have been working on that curriculum for the last 2 years, and we're well on our way meeting the guidelines and that guide that's provided. The second part of this presentation was the programming discussion for the high school. Department heads got together and talked about declining enrollment and what that means for programming for the students. And that was, they discussed their goals of this discussion and their vision, and that included that on the minutes. And then also, while they were discussing it, they included solution-based ideas, student-centered discussions. They kept personalized opportunities for students in the curriculum, and you know, they're looking at adjustments to the master schedule, which is interesting from my perspective. Sorry. And then there's the STEPS program, which is put out by the state, that's replacing APPR, which is teacher evaluations and for principal evaluation. You can see they're still going to have 2 observations. Lake George has been working on this transition and hopes to have it in place by September of this year, of not using APPR anymore. What else? And I've included, they included on the end of the slide. This spring, the Board of Education will hear from the PE and science departments about the research and audit stage of the cycle. And the curriculum committee will hear from the math and technology departments after the implementation stage. Our next meeting date is June 10th. Any questions? The presentation is really good, so if you go through it, I think it'll explain a lot too.
Thank you. Our Our next committee report is the Policy Committee report, and Mary Ann McKenzie, the chair of that committee, will give that report.
Okay, so this evening, there are, it looks like 14 policies moving to second read, and fortunately, those were each covered last month. So those are moving forward to second read. We have 4 policies moving to first read and 1 policy receiving an updated date of review because it was reviewed and there were no suggested changes. So I'll just start with the first read items. Policy 3311, notification of disclosure of employee disciplinary records. This came to us from Erie One BOCES. It is a new policy and it is also a required policy. And this policy is here secondary to changes to the public officers law mandating that New York public agencies, including K through 12 schools, must notify employees when their disciplinary records are requested under the Freedom of Information Law, otherwise known as FOIL. So therefore, when employee information is released, the employee will be notified when this occurs. The Committee on Open Government recommends that this notice be given in writing. Some further clarification that we were able to receive from our attorneys is that, this policy in general is in reference to formal discipline records, such as a 3020A proceeding or Section 75 with a settlement agreement, and that anytime that a request for an employee's disciplinary records would occur, that it would be accompanied by a consultation with our attorneys to ensure that the information being released is correct. And also attached an example notice that would be sent to an employee if somebody requested their records. And then the next policy is 7650. This policy was reviewed per our routine Lake George policy review cycle. This is identification and register of children with disabilities, the Child Fund policy. And there were just, the committee reviewed this, there were a few grammatical adjustments, and as we've had to do with several policies related to special education, children with disabilities, the age limit it changes from age 21 to age 22. So that revision is recommended. The next policy is 7660, parent involvement for children with disabilities. And this was just very minor wordsmithing suggestions. 7680, independent educational evaluations. There was some clarification in our review around maximum reimbursement if a parent is unhappy with the evaluation that provided by the school district, and they are in certain circumstances, they're entitled to have an independent evaluation done and at the school's expense. And we got some clarification around the legal requirements and best practices for that. And basically, there are no specific legal requirements. We are allowed to put a cap on it. Best practice is, and what our school district does is there is a reimbursement rate that is determined as reasonable and based on customary cost by qualified individuals in our region. And so there is some suggested additional language in the policy before us tonight based on our attorney's recommendation to help clarify those processes and expectations. And then, the last policy was 8241, patriotism, citizenship, and human rights education. And that was reviewed per our routine review process, and there were no recommended revisions or changes. And we had our policy committee just met before this meeting tonight. So we had lots of good discussion and engagement on a variety of policies, and those minutes and policies will be before you either next month or another time in the future. That's my report. Any questions?
Thank you, Mary Ann. It's ready. Okay. The next section on the agenda is the first of two public comment periods. And this first comment period is for items that are on the agenda. The second one is for other items. And we have sign-up sheets for that. We don't have anyone who signed up. But if you, you're not required to sign it. We just do that to be organized and to be able to have contact information so we can get back to people. So if there's anybody who didn't have a chance to sign that up that has a comment, is there anybody? I don't see anybody. If you're attending virtually and you have a comment or a question for the board, you can email us at boe@lkgeorge.org. And that email will come to the board and the superintendent, John Luthringer, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. So moving on to the next section for the school business section, we have the school business consent agenda, and our board uses a consent agenda to be efficient. And you heard a lot of our reports tonight, and a lot of work goes into all the things that are on the consent agenda. It happens quickly, again, for efficiency, but it represents a lot of work from our administrators, a lot of our teachers and staff, and the board does hours of reading in preparation surrounding the items on the agenda. So take it away. You're up, John.
As recommended by the superintendent, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District hereby approves the school business consent agenda items A through N. In brief summary, item A is the minutes from last month's meeting. Item B is the minute, recommendations from our Committee on Special Education. Item C and D are reference to the Treasurer's Report, Claims Auditor's Report. Item E is motion in regards to policies moving to second read. Item F is in regards to the surplus items that are of no value to the district or obsolete or damaged. Item G is a motion to accept the grant of $1,160 from the advisors of Adirondack Foreign Language Enhancement Fund to be utilized in the World Language Department. Item H is a motion to approve the senior high VEX robotics team request to attend the World Championship VEX robotics competition in Dallas, Texas. Item I is a motion to authorize the budget transfer from the repair reserve to cover the cost of the boiler system. Item J is another budget transfer from the repair reserve to cover the cost of the fire alarms repair. Item K is a motion to enter into a collaboration for vendor management and data security and privacy practices. Just in brief summary, this allows us to collaborate with BOCES in regards to our DPAs, data privacy agreements, and really allows us more access to those documents that are needed when you're accessing different softwares in our district. Item L is a motion to nominate Lynn King for the election to the WSWHE BOCES. Item M is a motion to enter into a cooperative purchasing agreement for the items and commodities shared there. And item N is a motion to approve the proposal from Tetra Tech for our required 5-year building condition survey.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Second.
Do we have any questions? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Next item is the 2025-2026 school calendar.
As recommended by the superintendent, be resolved that the Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District hereby approves the 2025-2026 school calendar.
Do we have any questions? Any?
2 weeks off at Christmas.
Again,
Yeah, thanks to all the work that goes into that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. The next item is in the faculty staff recognition. We have faculty staff resignation.
as recommended by the superintendent, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District hereby accepts the resignation of Craig Hannon from the position of bus driver in the non-competitive class civil service effective March 20th.
We have any questions? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. The next item, John, you made mention earlier that we have a lot of retirements coming up. It's the faculty, staff resignation retirements.
As recommended by the superintendent, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District hereby accepts for the purpose of retirement the resignation of the following employees: Lisa Henley, the world language teacher; Jeff Crotty, elementary education teacher; Nicholas Round, special education teacher; Blake White, physical education teacher; Kim Palomini, clerical aide; Brenda Hoffman, business education teacher.
We have a motion.
I do see Brenda too as well. Well, after your motion.
Yeah.
So moved. Second.
You have any questions, any discussion?
Thank you.
Yes, yeah. And yeah, that's a lot of collective years, a lot of collective care and education for our students. So thank you. So all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Thank you again. Next item is the faculty staff consent agenda.
As recommended by the superintendent, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District hereby approves the faculty staff consent agenda items A through C. Item A, a motion to approve the promotional appointment of Howard Grant to the position of custodian. Item B is a motion to amend the 24-25 coaches list and 24-25 volunteer coaches list. And then item C, motion to amend the 24-25 substitute list.
Do we have a motion?
Moved.
Do we have any questions? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is Board of Education comments and discussion. Anybody have any topics for this evening? And I apologize, one thing that I was going to do this evening is report on we did our board self-eval last month using the super eval tool. And I realized when I got here that I didn't bring my notes, and I can't free form it. So it's brief, but and we had a great discussion and just some consolidated bullet points of the areas where we feel like we're doing well and some areas that we want to grow in. So I'll bring that to you next month. Is anything else from me? Okay. The next is our second public comment section. Do we have any? Okay, nobody signed up and nobody coming forward. So the proposed executive session so I'll read that. The Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District proposes entering into an executive session to discuss the employment history of particular employees and discussion of collective bargaining negotiations for the Lake George Education Association pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law. Do we have a motion?
Second.
Any questions? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries, and we do not anticipate taking any action in this session.
After
What's it?
the executive. session.
After the executive session, right? Thank you. I'm going to get it next month.
Getting so
Thank you.
close.
And maybe I'll write it down. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here.